Yes. Yar. Hello all and welcome back to Story Time. That's right. Today we're carrying on with C.S. Lewis's Prince Caspian, which is the sequel to The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe, which I read many weeks ago, which you can find if you go back in time. Today is quite a long reading, so you have to bear with me. Darn it, I left my water behind. Hold the phone! I got it, that was fast. That was fast, wasn't it? Yeah, okay. Got some new characters today, so some new accents. I've already written down what the accents are going to be. It might go hideously wrong, but what are you going to do? Am I right? Yes, okay. So, chapter and a half today. I shall stop when I want to. Marvellous. So, Prince Caspian, chapter 4. The dwarf tells us of Prince Caspian. And remember yesterday the narrator, so yes, he told us. He said. He's not going to tell you what the dwarf said because of all the questions and everything. So this is telling us the story through a more creative lens, if you will. So the dwarf tells of Prince Caspian. Prince Caspian lived in a great castle in the centre of Narnia with his uncle Miraz, the king of Narnia, and his aunt, who had red hair and was called Pruna Prisma, or Pruna Prismia. Queen Pruna Prismia. She doesn't appear much, so never mind. His father and mother were dead, and the person whom Caspian loved best was his nurse. And though, being a prince, he had wonderful toys which would do almost anything but talk, he liked best the last hour of the day, when the toys had all been put back in their cupboards, and nurse would tell him stories. I'm the nurse today. He didn't care much for his aunt and uncle, but about twice a week his uncle would send for him, and they would walk up and down together for half an hour on the terrace at the south side of the castle. One day, while they were doing this, the king said to him, "Well, boy, we must soon teach you to ride and use a sword. You know that your aunt and I have no children, so it looks as if you might have to be the king when I'm gone. How should you like that, eh?" "I don't know, uncle," said Caspian. "Don't know, eh?" said Miraz. "Why, I should like to know what more anyone could wish for." "All the same, I do wish," said Caspian. "What do you wish?" asked the king. I wish I could have lived in the old days," said Caspian. He was only a very little boy at the time. This won't be his voice for the entire story, don't worry. Up till now, King Miraz had been talking in the tiresome way that some grown-ups have, which makes it quite clear that they're not really interested in what you're saying. But now, he suddenly gave Caspian a very sharp look. "Eh? What's that?" he said. "What old days do you mean?" "Oh, don't you know, uncle?" said Caspian. "When everything was quite different. When all the animals could talk, and there were nice people who lived in the streams and the trees. Naiads and dryads they were called. And there were dwarfs, and there were lovely little fauns in all the woods. They had feet like goats, and—" "That's all nonsense for babies," said the king sternly. "Only fit for babies, do you hear? You're getting too old for that sort of stuff. At your age you ought to be thinking of battles and adventures, not fairy tales." "Oh, but there were battles and adventures in those days," said Caspian. "Wonderful adventures. Once there was a white witch, and she made herself queen of the whole country, and she made it so that it was always winter. And then 2 boys and 2 girls came from somewhere, and so they killed the witch, and they were made kings and queens of Narnia, and the names were Peter and Susan and Edmund and Lucy, and so they reigned for ever so long, and everyone had a lovely time, and it was all because of Aslan." "Who's he?" said Miraz. And if Caspian had been a very little older, the tone of his uncle's voice would have warned him that it would be wiser to shut up, but he babbled on. "Oh, don't you know?" he said. "Aslan is the great lion who comes from over the sea." "Who's been telling you all this nonsense?" said the king, in a voice of thunder. Caspian was frightened and said nothing. "Your Royal Highness," said King Miraz, letting go of Caspian's hand, which he had been holding till now, "I insist upon being answered. Look me in the face. Who's been telling you this pack of lies?" "Nurse," faltered Caspian. And he burst into tears. "Stop that noise," said his uncle, taking Caspian by the shoulders and giving him a shake. "Stop it, and never let me catch you talking or thinking about those silly stories ever again. There never were those kings and queens. How could there be 2 kings at the same time? and there's no such person as Aslan. And there are no such things as lions. And there never was a time when animals could talk. Do you hear?
Yes, uncle,
sobbed Caspian. Then let's have no more about it, said the king. Then he called to one of the gentlemen in waiting who was standing at the far end of the terrace, and said in a cold voice, Conduct his Royal Highness to his apartments, and send his Royal Highness's nurse to me at once. Miraz! That's his name, Miraz. Next day, Caspian found what a terrible thing he had done, for nurse had been sent away without ever being allowed to say goodbye to him, and he was told he was to have a tutor. Oh! Caspian missed his nurse very much, and shed many tears, and because he was so miserable, he thought about the old stories of Narnia far more than before. He dreamed of dwarves and dryads every night, and tried very hard to make the dogs and cats in the castle talk to him, but the dogs only wagged their tails, and the cats only purred. Oh, okay. Pause the story. Speaking of dogs, I made up a joke, okay? I want you to give me a thumbs up or down if it's good or bad, or just comment. Okay, ready? This is my joke. What sound does a dead dog make? Woof. It's good, isn't it? It's good. Woof. Actually, it's terrible. But now this is recorded for life, so, yeah. Where was I? Getting distracted by dogs. Caspian felt sure that he would hate the new tutor, but when the new tutor arrived a week later, he turned out to be the sort of person it is almost impossible not to like. He was the smallest and also the fattest man Caspian had ever seen. He had a long, silvery... Oh, there's a picture! Hold the phone. This is a picture of the naiads and the dryads. There. And that's the new tutor. 2 in 1. He had a long, silvery, pointed beard which came down to his waist, and his face, which was brown and covered with wrinkles, looked very wise, very ugly, and very kind. His voice was grave, and his eyes were merry, so that, until you got to know him really well, it was hard to know when he was joking and when he was serious. His name was Dr. Cornelius. Of all his lessons with Dr. Cornelius, the one that Caspian liked the best was history. Up till now, except for Nurse's stories, he had known nothing about the history of Narnia, and he was very surprised to learn that the royal family were newcomers in the country. Okay, right, I'm going to do Cornelius' voice. I'm going to base Cornelius' voice off that scene in, I think it's The Princess Bride. Marriage is what keeps us together. That's how I'm going to base his voice, okay? Here we go. It was your Highness's ancestor, Caspian I, said Dr. Cornelius, who first conquered Narnia and made it his kingdom. It was he who brought all your nation into the country. You are not native Narnians at all. You are all Telmarines. That is, you all come from the land of Telmar, far beyond the western mountains. That is why Caspian I is called Caspian the Conqueror. Please, Doctor, said Caspian one day, who lived in Narnia before we all came here out of the Telmar? No men, or very few, lived in Narnia before the Telmarines took it over, said Dr. Cornelius. Then who did my great-great-grandsisters come from? Grandsisters conquer. Grandsister. Whom, not who, your highness, said Dr. Cornelius. Perhaps it is time to turn from history to grammar. Oh, please, not yet, said Caspian. I mean, wasn't there a battle? Why is he called Caspian the Conqueror if there was nobody to fight him? I said there were very few men in Narnia, said the doctor, looking at the little boy very strangely through his great spectacles. Oh, and the boy hasn't grown up yet. I'll go back to the child voice. For a moment, Caspian was puzzled, and then suddenly his heart gave a leap. Do you mean, he gasped, that there were other things? Do you mean that it was like in the stories? Were there... Hush, said Dr. Cornelius, laying his head very close to Caspian's. Not a word more. Don't you know your nurse was sent away for telling you about old Narnia? The king doesn't like it. If he found me telling you secrets, you'll be whipped. And why should I have my head cut off? But why? Asked Caspian. It's high time we turn to grammar now, said Dr. Cornelius in a loud voice. Will your Royal Highness be pleased to open Pulverulentus Siccus at the 4th page of his grammatical garden
or the arbour of accidents presently open to tender wilts.
After that, it was all nouns and verbs till lunchtime, but I don't think Caspian learned much. He was too excited. He felt that Dr. Cornelius would not have said so much unless he meant to tell him more sooner or later. In this he was not disappointed. A few days later, his tutor said,
Tonight, I am going to give you a lesson in astronomy. At the dead of night, two noble planets, Tava and Alambil, will pass within 1 degree of each other. Such a conjunction has not occurred for 200 years, and your highness will not live to see it again. It will be best if we go to bed a little earlier than usual. When the time of the conjunction draws near, I will come and wake you.
This didn't seem to have anything to do with old Narnia, which is what Caspian really wanted to hear about. But getting up in the middle of the night is always an interesting thing, and he was moderately pleased. When he went to bed that night, he thought at first that he would not be able to sleep, but he soon dropped off, and it seemed only a few minutes before he felt someone gently shaking him. He sat up in bed and saw that the room was full of moonlight. Dr. Cornelius, muffled in a hooded robe and holding a small lamp in his hand, stood by the bedside. Caspian remembered at once what they were going to do. He got up and put on some clothes. Although it was a summer night, he felt colder than he had expected, and was quite glad when the doctor wrapped him in a robe like his own, and gave him a pair of warm, soft buskins for his feet. A moment later, both muffled so they could hardly be seen in the dark corridors, and both shod so that they almost made no noise, master and pupil left the room. Caspian followed the doctor through many passages and up several staircases, and at last, through a little door in a turret, they came out upon the leads. On one side were the battlements, and on the other a steep roof. Below them, all shadowy and shimmery, the castle gardens. Above them, stars and moon. Presently they came to another door, which led into the great central tower of the whole castle. Dr. Cornelius unlocked it, and they began to climb the dark, winding stair of the tower. Caspian was becoming excited. He had never been allowed up this stair before. It was long and steep, but when they came out on the roof of the tower, and Caspian had got his breath, he felt that it had been well worth it. Away on his right he could see, rather indistinctly, the western mountains. On his left was the gleam of the great river, and everything was so quiet that he could hear the sound of the waterfall at Beaver's Dam, a mile away. Beaver's Dam! There was no difficulty in picking out the two stars that they had come to see. They hung rather low in the southern sky, almost as bright as two little moons, and very close together. Are they going to have a collision? He asked, in an awestruck voice.
Nay, dear prince,
said the doctor, and he too spoke in a whisper.
Nay,
he whispered.
The great lords of the upper sky know the steps of their dance too well for that. Look well upon them. Their meeting is fortunate and means some great good for the sad realm of Narnia. Tarva, the lord of victory, salutes Alambil, the lady of peace. They are just coming to their nearest. Hello!
It's a pity that the tree gets in the way, said Caspian. You really see better from the west tower, though it's not so high. Dr. Cornelius said nothing for about 2 minutes, but stood still, with his eyes fixed on Tava and Alambil. Then he drew a deep breath and turned to Caspian.
There,
he said.
You have seen what no man now alive has seen, nor will see again. And you are right. We should have seen it ever before from the smaller tower. Even better, rather. I brought you here for another reason. Oh, mercy.
Oh no, the fan's in the way. Look there. Just tilt your heads, all right? The fan's in the way. There we go. Another reason why are they up the tower? Why? Caspian looked up at him, but the doctor's hood concealed most of his face.
The virtue of this tower, said the doctor, is that we have 6 empty rooms beneath us and a long stair, and the door at the bottom of the stair is locked. We cannot be overheard.
Are you going to tell me what you wouldn't tell me the other day? Said Caspian.
I am, said the doctor. But remember, you and I must never talk about these things, except here, on the very top of the great tower.
No, that's a promise, said the Caspian.
But do go on, please. Listen, said the old doctor. All you have heard about old Narnia is true. It is not the land of men. It is the country of Aslan, the country of waking trees. Maybe they walk as well, and visible naiads, of fauns and satyrs and dwarves and giants, of the gods and the centaurs, of talking beasts. It was against these that the first Caspian fought. It is you Telmarines who silenced the beasts, and the trees and the fountains, and who killed and drove away the dwarves and the fauns, and are now trying to cover up even the memory of them. The king does not allow them to be spoken of.
Oh, I do wish he hadn't, said Caspian, and I am glad that it was all true, even if it is all over.
Many of your race wish that in secret, said Dr. Cornelius.
But doctor, said Caspian, why do you say my race? After all, I suppose you're a Telmarine too?
Am I?
Said the doctor. Well, you're a man anyway, said Caspian.
Am I?
Repeated the doctor, in a deeper voice, at the same moment throwing back his hood so that Caspian could see his face clearly in the moonlight. All at once, Caspian realized the truth and felt that he ought to have realized it long before. Dr. Cornelius was so small and so fat, and had such a very long beard. Two thoughts came into his head at the same moment. One was a thought of terror. He's not a real man. He's not a real man at all. He's a dwarf, and he's brought me up here to kill me. The other was sheer delight. There are real dwarves still, and I've seen one at last.
So you've guessed it in the end, said Dr. Cornelius. Or guessed it very nearly right. I am not a pure dwarf. I have human blood in me too. Many dwarves escaped in the great battles and lived on, shaving their beards and wearing high-heeled shoes and pretending to be men. They have mixed with your Telmarines. I am one of those, only a half-dwarf. And if any one of my kindred, the true dwarves, is still alive anywhere in the world, doubtless they would despise me and call me a traitor. But never in all my years have we forgotten your own people, and all the other happy creatures of... our own people, and all the other happy creatures of Narnia, and the long-lost days of freedom. I'm sorry, Doctor, said Caspian. It wasn't my fault, you know. I am not saying these things in blame of you, dear prince, said the doctor. You may well ask why I say them at all, but I've two reasons. Firstly, because my old heart it's carried these secret memories so long that it aches with them, and would burst if I did not whisper them to you. But secondly, for this, that when you become king, you may help us, for I know that you also, Telmarine though you are, love the old things. I do, said Caspian. But how can I help? You can be kind to the poor remnants of the dwarf people like myself. You can gather learned magicians and try to find a way of awakening the trees once more. You can search through all the nooks and the wild places of the land to see if any fauns or talking beasts or dwarves are perhaps still alive, in hiding. Do you think there are any? Asked Caspian eagerly. I don't know, said the doctor with a deep sigh. Sometimes I'm afraid that it can't be. I've been looking for traces of them all my life. Sometimes I haven't. I've thought I heard a dwarf drum in the mountains. Sometimes at night in the woods I thought I caught a glimpse of fauns and satyrs dancing a long way off. But when I came to the place there was never anything there. I've often despaired. But something always happens to start me hoping again. I don't know. But at least you can try to be a king like the High King Peter of old, and not like your uncle. Then it's true about the kings and queens too, and about the White Witch, said Caspian. Certainly it is true, said Cornelius. Their reign was the golden age in Narnia, and the land has never forgotten them. Did they live in the castle, Doctor? Nay, my dear, said the old man. The castle is a thing of yesterday. Your great-great-great-grandfather built it. But when the two sons of Adam and the two daughters of Eve were made kings and queens of Narnia by Aslan himself, they lived in the castle of Cair Paravel. No man alive has seen that blessed place, and perhaps even the ruins of it now have vanished. But we believe it was far from here, down at the mouth of the great river, on the very shore of the sea. Said Caspian with a shudder. Do you mean in the black woods, where all the ghosts live? Your Highness speaks as though you have been taught. As you have been taught, says the doctor. But it is all lies. There are no ghosts there. That is a story invented by the Telmarines. Your kings are in deadly fear of the sea, because they can never quite forget that in all the stories Aslan comes from over the sea. They don't want to go near it, and they don't want anyone else to go near it, so they've let the great woods grow up to cut their people off from the coast. But because they have quarreled with the trees, they are afraid of the woods. And because they are afraid of the woods, they imagine that they are full of ghosts, and the kings and great men hating both the sea and the wood, partly believe these stories, and partly encourage them. They feel safer if no one in Narnia dares to go down to the coast and look out on the sea towards Aslan's land and the morning and the eastern end of the world. There was a deep silence between them for a few minutes. Then Dr. Cornelius said, "Come! We've been here long enough. It's time to go down and go to bed." "Must we?" said Caspian. "I like to go on talking about these things for hours and hours and hours." "Someone might be looking for us. If we did that, it might begin to," said Dr. Cornelius. Chapter 5. I shall read halfway through this. Yes, okay. Caspian's adventure in the mountains. After this, Caspian and his tutor had many more secret conversations at the top of the great tower. And at each conversation, Caspian learned more and more about old Narnia, so that thinking and dreaming about the old days, and longing that they might come back, filled nearly all of his spare hours. But of course he'd not many hours to spare, for now his education was beginning in earnest. He learned sword fighting and riding, swimming and diving, how to shoot with a bow and play on the recorder and the theorbo, how to hunt the stag and cut him up when he was dead, besides cosmography, rhetoric, heraldry, versification, of course history, with a little law, physics, alchemy and astronomy. Of magic he learned only the theory, for Dr. Cornelius said the practical part was no proper study for princes. "And I myself," he added, "am only a very imperfect magician and can only do the smallest experiments." "Of navigation, which is a noble and heroic art," said the doctor. He was taught nothing of navigation because King Miraz disapproves of ships in the sea. He also learned a great deal by using his own eyes and ears. As a little boy, he often wondered why he disliked his aunt, Queen, here we go, Pruna Prismia. He now saw that it was because she disliked him. He also began to see that Narnia was an unhappy country. The taxes were high, and the laws were stern, and Miraz was a cruel man. After some years there came a time when the Queen seemed to be ill, and there was a great deal of bustle and pother about her in the castle, and doctors came and the courtiers whispered. This was in the early summertime, and one night, while all the fuss was going on, Caspian was unexpectedly wakened by Dr. Cornelius, after he'd been only a few hours in bed. Is he grown up now? I'm going to say he's grown up now. "Are we going to do a little astronomy, doctor?" said Caspian. "Hush!" said the doctor. "Trust me and do exactly as I tell you. Put on all your clothes. You have a long journey before you." Caspian was very surprised, but he learned to have confidence in his tutor, and he began doing what he was told at once. When he was dressed, the doctor said, "I have a wallet for you. We must go into the next room and fill it with victuals from your highness's supper table." "Oh, my gentleman in waiting will be there," said Caspian. "They are fast asleep and will not wake," said the doctor. "I am a very minor magician, but I can at least contrive a charmed sleep." They went into the antechamber, and there, sure enough, the two gentlemen in waiting were, sprawled on chairs and snoring hard. Dr. Cornelius quickly came up, cut up the remains of a cold chicken and some slices of venison, and put them, with bread and an apple or so, and a little flask of good wine, into the wallet, which he then gave to Caspian. It fitted on by a strap over Caspian's shoulder, like a satchel you use for taking books to school. "Have you got your sword?" asked the doctor. "Yes," said Caspian. "Then put this mantle over all to hide the sword, and the wallet. That's right, and now we must go to the great tower, and talk." When they reached the top of the tower, it was a cloudy night, not at all like the night when they had seen the conjunction of Tava and Alambil. Dr. Cornelius said, "Marriage!" No, he didn't say that. "Dear Prince, you must leave this castle at once and go to seek your fortune in the wide world. Your life is in danger here." "Why?" asked Caspian. "Because you are the true king of Narnia, Caspian the 10th, the true son and heir of Caspian the 9th. Long life to your majesty." And suddenly, to Caspian's great surprise, the little man dropped down on one knee and kissed his hand. "What does it all mean? I don't understand," said Caspian. "I wonder. You have never asked me before," said the doctor. "Why, being the son of King Caspian, you are not King Caspian yourself. Everyone except your majesty knows that Miraz is a usurper. When he first began to rule, he did not even pretend to be the king. He called himself Lord Protector, but then your royal mother died, the good queen, and the only Telmarine who was ever kind to me. And then one by one all the great lords who had known your father died or disappeared. Not by accident either. Miraz weeded them out. Belcia and Uvilas were shot with arrows on a hunting party. By chance, it was pretended. All the great houses of the Passerids were sent to fight giants on the northern frontier, till one by one they fell. Arleon and Erimon, and I can't pronounce their names, Caspian. You understand me? Ermion! No, whatever his name is, who cares? And a dozen more, they are dead, and they're executed for treason on a false charge. The 2 brothers of Beaversdam he shut up as madmen, and finally he persuaded the 7 noble lords, who alone among all the Telmarines did not fear the sea, to sail away and look for new lands beyond the eastern ocean, and... Oh, that's a hint to the next book! And as he intended, they never came back. And when there was no one left, who could speak a word for you? Then his flatterers said he had instructed them, begged him to become king, and of course, he did.
Do you mean he now wants to kill me too? Said Caspian.
That is almost certain,
said Dr. Cornelius. But why now? Said Caspian. I mean, why didn't he do it long ago if he wanted to? And what harm have I done him?
He has changed his mind about you because of something that happened only 2 hours ago. The Queen has had a son.
Oh, I don't see what that's got to do with it, said Caspian.
Don't see, exclaimed the doctor. Have all my lessons in history and politics taught you no more than that? Listen. As long as he has no children of his own, he was willing enough that you should be king after he died. He may not have cared much about you, but he would rather you should have the throne than a stranger. Now that he has a son of his own, he will want his own son to be the next king. You are in the way. He'll clear you out of the way.
Is he really as bad as that? Said Caspian. Would he really murder me?
He murdered your father,
said Dr. Cornelius. Caspian felt very strange and said nothing.
I can tell you the whole story, said the doctor, but not now. There is no time. You must fly at once.
You'll come with me, said Caspian.
I dare not,
said the doctor.
It would make your danger greater. There are two are more easily tracked than one. Dear Prince, dear King Caspian, you must be very brave. You must go alone, and at once. Try to get across the southern border to the court of King Nain of Arkenland. He will be good to you.
Shall I never see you again? Said Caspian in a quavering voice.
I hope so, dear King, said the doctor. What friend have I in the wide world except your majesty? And I have a little magic. But in the meantime, speed is everything. Speed, speed, speed. Here are 2 gifts before you go. This is a little purse of gold. Alas, all the treasure in the castle should be your own by rights. And here is something far better.
He put in Caspian's hand something which he could hardly see, but which he knew by the feel to be a horn.
That, said Dr. Cornelius, is the greatest and most sacred treasure of Narnia. Many terrors I endured, many spells did I utter to find it, when I was still young. It is the magic horn of Queen Susan herself, which she left behind when she vanished from Narnia at the end of the Golden Age. It is said that whoever blows it shall have strange help. No one can say how strange. It may have the power to call Queen Lucy and King Edmund and Queen Susan and High King Peter, King High King Peter, High King, back from the past. It actually says that in the book. No, it doesn't. Back from the past, and they will sail. They will set all to rights. It may be that it will call Aslan himself. Take it, King Caspian, but do not use it, except at your greatest need. And now haste, haste, haste! The little door at the very bottom of the tower, the door into the garden, is unlocked. Then we must part.
Can't I get my horse, Destrier? Said Caspian.
He is already saddled and waiting for you just at the corner of the orchard.
During the long climb down the winding staircase, Cornelius whispered many more words of direction and advice. Caspian's heart was sinking, but he tried to take it all in. Then came the fresh air in the garden, a fervent hand-clasp with the doctor, a run across the lawn, a welcoming whinny from Destrier. Horses say hello when they whinny. Or is it Scooby-Doo? Anyway. And so King Caspian X left the castle of his fathers. Looking back, he saw fireworks going up to celebrate the birth of the new prince. Yes, I'm going to stop there, actually. Half an hour's worth. Marvellous. Wonderful. Good grief, that voice was difficult.
Marriage is what keeps us together.
You have to watch that film now to know where that voice is from.
Right then, page 234. I'll see you tomorrow at 5:30 to carry on the story. Have a good night, and I'll see you then. Ta-ra!